congratulate both Rich Lux and Keemstar for falling into the alt-right pipeline.
Hey, congratulations to DefNoodles for ending his career. I don't understand how truly, like, DefNoodles, how many times has he been checked? He's been checked pretty hard multiple times. He's been checked pretty hard multiple times. Okay. I'm not usually one to talk about views. Views are up and down, and I get it. I've never pulled like super consistent views or anything, but like his views have gone down from like over 100K for most videos. 120K was, I guess, his average, and they've slowly been kind of declining to now we're getting like more of an average of around like 50, 60, 70. The only reason I say that is people are tired of this. He's assassinated his credibility, and he's been called out before. And honestly, I think our conversation did not do very well for him. It seemed to be another downturn. He seemed to recover from the first one when people called him dishonest. And then when he had his conversation with me, a lot of people were like, oh, I thought Dennis changed. What happened? And then like, that's just like this is too many times, shame me once, fool on you. Wait, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, kind of a thing. I'm so tired. So like he's kind of destroyed his credibility here, and this really, to me, this is like the worst of it. Rich Lux is just expressing his frustration over the way that Ethan Klein handled it, and he stopped. He did like one video on it. And then DefNoodles needed to call them part of the alt-right. The problem with this is because Rich Lux is a very clearly probably progressive gay man. And so what DefNoodles is trying to do, he's trying to say, hey guys, this guy who's against Ethan somehow supports the alt-right pipeline magically. I don't know how. I don't even know what the logic here is. But the reality is he's tone policing a gay dude about being offended. Like, that's homophobic. So it's so interesting. Like, how many times has Dennis kind of shit on like a marginalized individual in his desperation to appear virtuous and woke? Truly speaking, I mean, when I had this interaction with him, outside of my insensitivity for the Gabriella B girl, which I am sorry for, I was right about everything else. I had like a big point. I was talking about how they over matured that kid, Killick. He's a good young man. He was 17. They intentionally called him 19, which gets into a conversation about like the over maturization and over prescription of punishment for like young black men, which might be a little out there for you guys, and maybe I'm wrong, but I remember watching that and I was like, holy shit, I could feel a race element. But that you can completely discount that argument, because the more obvious thing here is that they are weaponizing like terms like pedophilia and predator, calling him like a predator, talking about how like he must have had like bad father figures in his life, even though I have nothing about him, saying that he was like a rapist, because the first step is making criticizing people online, because he said something about Gabriella B indirectly to her brother, because they were both trash talking each other, and he took it too far. But basically what you're doing is you're giving the middle finger to sexual assault sexual assault survivors and child molestation survivors, because you're calling this guy, you're saying that this will create the trauma, some kind of PTSD response of this is somehow pedophilia or sexual assault. You're diminishing what it is to actually be sexually assaulted. And so like that was my point. And like, what did he do? He completely washed that away, because he felt like he could push a narrative that like I was like an incel or whatever, and that Killick was a bad person, and that this Gabriella girl actually had PTSD or had trauma response, which she didn't. If she had trauma response, it's not because he said things about her indirectly. It was because the family put a fucking camera in her face. Okay, and here's that again. He thinks it's the virtuous thing to do to defend Ethan at all costs. But the reality is like you're tone policing a fucking gay dude about being offended about being fucking gay. Like, holy shit. Like, it's not like he's constantly pushing out disingenuous social justice narratives to appear virtuous and woke, but he steps on other marginalized groups during doing that. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's really toxic, and it's really inappropriate, and it's really disgusting. So I'm just saying, it's fucking disgusting.
Dennis, is everything okay in there? This guy in the alt-right? Dennis, I know we don't get along, but...
There are gay people, I guess you could consider alt-right, but, like, they're more conservative than this.
All due respect, what the hell are you thinking?
Keeping us to yourself. We're not crossing...
Okay, I get it. So because Rich Lux dared to criticize Ethan Klein for some insensitive comments towards the LGBTQ community, you decided to lump him in with the alt-right? right? Not gonna lie, Dennis, even with your raging boner for this 4-year-old man in mind, I don't fully understand how you made that connection. But
Bro, in all honesty, though, like, can we be absolutely honest here? We both know that I guarantee you, Ethan does not want to have anything to do with Dennis whatsoever. I guarantee you. If I was Ethan, I would be fucking distancing myself as much as possible from this toxic fucking cretin, 100%. And this is the thing is, I think that this is a response where he's so desperate for Ethan's attention that he'll do anything to try to get it back, but it's not going to happen. It's like, you know, it's like when your dad leaves you and you're like, Dad, come back, please. You know what I mean? That's what happened here. And I think it started after his really, apparently very awkward.
Steve's
I'll take a look at that after this. Is very awkward. Awkward, like the streamies that they did or whatever. Probably after that.
let's hear a bit more of what he has to say before I make a final judgment. Maybe he was just joking.
I have to preamble this by saying...
Stop, Bowblax. You know what you're doing. Even if he was joking, he's still honest. I mean, he's not honest. He still means it. Like, that's how jokes usually work. And Dennis just says everything's a fucking joke anyway. So even if he said he was joking, it doesn't make any sense.
This is not a joke, okay? We are at the cusp of witnessing the fusion of YouTube drama and political commentary on the internet. I want to congratulate...
I want you to understand. Dennis is the fusion of political drama and whatever. Hold on, let me just replay because I'm like a brain dead.
The fusion of YouTube drama.
There we go.
And political commentary on the internet.
Well, first of all, I actually am the fusion of political drama, YouTube on the internet, whatever the fuck you said. I'm generally the fusion. I like to look at like drama type topics. Sorry, I'm tired. It's 5 a.m. Through a lens of through a more social justice-y lens, you know what I mean? I try to do that. That's what I like to do. So I like to think that I'm the fusion. I'm more educated than most people on stuff, even when I get it wrong. But Dennis is, so I do that. I am actually the fusion of those things. But Dennis is the fusion of those things as they are for the general community. Most people in YouTube drama don't know shit about dick, which is okay. Like when it comes to politics, it's okay. That's totally fine. You don't have to understand these things. It's not interesting for everybody. But this is what happens when a YouTube drama person tries to talk about political and social topics and has no fucking clue what he's doing. Okay, so he is the fusion of that thing as a person. But he's the representation of everything bad about it. It's the truth.
I want to congratulate both Rich Lux and Keemstar for falling into the alt-right pipeline and supplying motherfuckers like Gavin McInnes and Tim Stool with the narratives that they want so they can continue to work against progressive causes.
I just want you to know, the alt-right pipeline is less about the content. You could argue Keemstar's edgy content would be part of the alt-right pipeline. Again, we talked about this before. The biggest issue with the alt-right pipeline isn't necessarily edgy content. It's the issue of the way that the algorithms interact with the things that you like to see. So the alt-right pipeline would work in a way where it's okay, maybe you watch a drama alert episode, which really isn't that edgy, to be honest with you. But maybe in the algorithm, it shows you things that are more related to drama. But then it also shows you something that's hey, dunking on leftist LOL or LOL leftist TikTokers. And then you hit that, right? So it would be something like this, potentially, where it's okay, you watched a Keemstar episode. Here's drama alert Keemstar, right? And then in the video recommendations, you're recommended things that are on a spectrum. So actually that spectrum would be maybe you're offered things that, all right, let's say here's the spectrum of left and right to make it really simple, right? And here's the middle. Let's say that drama alert falls somewhere slightly right, because it's not even really right. Honestly, I wouldn't say it's very right at all, but let's say it's falls right here. And this is drama alert, right? And so after you finish drama alert, what they're going to do is they're going to show you things within proximity of drama alert and go okay, what's around here? And they're going to recommend videos on both all over the place to see what you like. Let's say you like something one of those things is owning libtards, right? So that would be here. So let's say it's over here. So now you recommended the owning libtard sphere, and so now it recommends a bunch of shit out to you. And maybe this time it's are black people really people, right? So then you watch that video and you start to go down this chain of and you might go back a little bit to the left and right of your central point. And that's how this alt-right pipeline works, because and it happens on the alt-left as well. I mean, this happens in both directions, but because it'll suggest things within a sphere of within proximity of what your general ideas are, and then it'll show you really sensationalized content because people like that, just generally speaking. And so what happens is you move further right until you're on Instagram looking at election conspiracy memes and you're a fucking QAnon person. That's how the alt-right pipeline actually works. And I don't think Dennis understands what that means, because he's just saying the word because it's a buzzword. It's a buzzword. That's all it really is. So, yeah.
Which is, at the end of the day, exactly what Rich Lux and Keemstar wanted, right?
Yeah, Dennis, this guy wants to work against progressive causes. Now,
He was, by the way, he was so like, I like Ethan Klein still. I think he's a cool guy. I'm upset by this. That was his whole take. It's Rich Lux's whole fucking take. And this whole idea that he's trying to deplatform Ethan is fucking insane. It's like you didn't even watch the video, which is true because you don't watch anything. I don't think you, dude. You don't watch anything anybody ever says ever. I don't think that you do. I think that you read comments about what people are saying. I don't think you watched my videos. I think you read the comments of what people were saying about my videos, and that's it. I don't know if you have I don't really understand why you don't do your due diligence. I don't really get it. It doesn't really make sense to me.
let's not judge a book by its cover, all right? Rich Lux looks furthest away from the alt-right, and Dennis looks
Bro,
of causes.
Rich Lux is literally wearing, I believe, a Teddy Fresh t-shirt, but he with a Hello Kitty patch ironed onto it. I could be wrong, but that's what it looks like to me, like a color block t-shirt with a fucking Hello Kitty on it. I feel like that's what this is. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what that is. I'm pretty sure. How the fuck is he an anti-Ethan supporter? What? How is that? How is that? How? Hey, I'm just where I hate Ethan so much. By the way, here's my Teddy Fresh. Blah, 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 blah. You know what is color block? It's like this. This is color block where you do like this kind of style.
Now, let's not judge a book by its cover, all right? Rich Lux looks furthest away from the alt-right, and Dennis looks crazy here, but there is a slight
Dennis looks closer to the alt-right. Okay, and if he's not on the right, he's pushing people towards the right because his content's horrible. Like, imagine going like further left and you see Dennis's content, you watch it, and you're like, "This is horrible. I'm going back to the right." You know what I mean? That's what happens.
possibility that the actions of these
It's a real thing, by the way. It's like you move away from a particular sphere when you respect it less, basically.
people don't match their looks. Who knows?
Which tends to happen when you actually cancel somebody and you no longer offer like a space for them in a particular area. They will move away from that. So usually, like if you're like a shitty on the left, they'll move farther right. If they're shitty on the right, they'll move farther left, kind of a thing. And a lot of times, you get warped into like a farther left and farther right online. So like it's good to have spaces in the middle that can catch people. And I like to think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I like to think that I'm like the middle ground, somebody who catches people and they're like, oh shit. And like I like to think that, and this is just a commonsensical thing, because I'm not amazing, but online the standards are so low that like basic common sense seems so interesting and so intelligent. So
Lux could be conspiring to take down the gay community from the inside. So let me just show you this entire situation.
Oh, maybe it's a James Charles one? Maybe.
So you can properly judge Rich Lux based on what happened, rather than what I or Dennis or Rich or anybody else says. So as established earlier, this all started due to Ethan Klein on his podcast, indulging in some humor at the expense of gay people. Here's how DefNoodles described the situation in his video.
Wouldn't you say that like any joke that would be considered offensive towards like a gay person, wouldn't that be part of the alt-right pipeline? Like by this logic, Ethan would be on the right slightly because he's making bigoted jokes. And by the way, I don't think the joke's that big of a deal. I think the way that he treated the person that came on was a bigger deal. But like, right? Am I wrong about that? That would make more sense. Ethan would be part of the alt-right pipeline by this logic.
About it.
Anyway, folks, moving on to Ethan Klein. A few days ago, some fans of the H3 podcast got upset with Ethan.
I understand not all right-siders are homophobic, but like edgier content would lean on the right side. Like you wouldn't really see much edgy content on the left side. It wouldn't be considered on like the left side of the spectrum. That's why I said it's on like the right side. And when like edgy content like that, slightly edgy, would generally push you more towards the right than the left, if you know what I mean. But like I said, the way that it works, like with the proximity of different content. So if you liked Ethan's like silly joke about buttholes, you might be more inclined to like, leftist owning, leftists being owned by fucking Ben Shapiro. You know what I'm saying?
Because of a phone call between Ethan and a fan of the podcast where they discussed being a bottom, and some people got upset with Ethan because of some of the questions that Ethan was asking. They also thought that Ethan was rude to the caller. However, after the show,
you like that though, he says listen to the way that he phrases this.
Questions that Ethan was asking, they also thought that Ethan.
They also thought he was rude. They think this. Some people didn't like. You see how he's representing it? He's very abstract in his presentation of the information. It's very like, some people didn't like it. Other people were upset. Who are these people? I don't fucking know. You know what I'm saying?
And was rude to the caller. However, after
some people thought he was being rude. That's the bigger one. Like that's like passive aggressive. It's like when somebody like does something that hurts somebody and you're like, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's the same energy. I'm sorry that you feel upset by what I said. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm sorry for what I said. I'm sorry that you feel upset by it.
The show, Ethan ended up apologizing on Twitter, but that didn't really resolve the situation because over the next couple of days, people continue to express their discontent. So,
Well, Dennis, I know that you think that anytime somebody apologizes, it should instantly absolve them of what they do wrong. But like that's not how apologies work. People generally look at the genuinity and the consistency of how many apologies they're making, and they weigh it based on that. Unless it's a difficult concept for you to understand. Because you don't really genuinely apologize, but that's kind of the thing, the way it is.
At the beginning of the latest episode of the H3 podcast, Ethan apologized again, and then he explained some of his thoughts around this whole situation.
Having said all that, which I genuinely feel, and especially, you know, I was very insensitive
Are you gonna show where like him and Dan were like yelling and going crazy, or Dan was going crazy more than anything else, but Ethan didn't stop it?
to the caller, the whole pushing, the comment specifically where I was like, I could tell what you are based on your voice or whatever. Very, very gross and bad, okay? Like, I totally acknowledge that.
So, it seems like a pretty open and shut case. Ethan made some distasteful jokes, he apologized for it, but Rich Lux still made a video criticizing Ethan regardless.
Did he make it after the fact? I mean,
So now let's see what he has to say.
I don't know if Bowblax did this intentionally. I think he's trying to be unbiased. I don't think he's trying to be biased. But like what it sounded like he was saying, and I don't think this is what Bowblax was saying, the way that he phrased it made it sound like everything was over with, and then Rich Lux tried to encourage more drama. I think it's more that like Rich Lux saw the situation, saw the resolution, he waited for it to kind of end, and then he gave his 2 cents on the topic in like a more roundabout way rather than kind of like doing piece by piece by piece by piece, which is probably the better way to do content instead of being like breaking news type content. Right, so I think that was probably a good time for him to wait to talk about it when it was like resolved a bit, you know?
He apologized for it, but Rich Lux still made a video criticizing Ethan regardless. So now let's see what he has to say.
Ethan Klein has offended the gay community, girl. Attack! The skinny legend has spoken. Alright, so Ethan Klein on his podcast yesterday said some very offensive things to people. He even got called out. We have the clip. You're gonna be shook, girl. Yes, long-time listener, first-time caller. Roll it.
He has some anal leaking. If he's getting blasted in the ass hard enough, potentially, you may need to wear a diaper. I don't think vaginas increase in size from sex, but assholes actually do. If you have a lot of anal sex, you can actually blast open your anus. Frequent anal sex can result in a blasted open asshole.
You know, now that I'm thinking about this, like, okay, the joke that he might have a loose butthole from getting penises in the butt is like whatever, it's fine. I don't think it's like super problematic or really problematic at all. But like the insistence that like, oh, it loosens your, and I think it does loosen your ass, but I've seen people say that it actually strengthens your butthole, your booty hole muscles, so it makes them stronger. And so I'm still on the fence. I'm trying to, but like going into like the depth of explaining the joke, it probably would have been better if you were just like, yeah, he's gay, he probably takes it in the booty hole, so he needs diapers because he can't hold his poopies in, and he kind of just move on. But you know, okay.
Maybe
I think that they were just kind of hamming it up for content. So you know,
just got railed real hard the night before. He's a power
Possible.
bottom. Power bottom is a guy who likes to wildly ride the peg of another dude while he jacks you off until both have bone orgasms. Okay, we have a call about the top bottom stereotype. So Matt, what have I got wrong?
I know often you feel inclined to describe someone where you think they might be a bottom. I think that's often a misconception, that like bottoms may be passive. You can't always
they most of the time are, but
tell like who's the top, who's the bottom.
That's why power bottom would be like a dom, you know?
Find it offensive if I say by being like, oh, he's probably a bottom? Is that the problem? To make
absolutely,
it's offensive.
Because the gay men already you have to deal with certain assumptions about femininity and masculinity.
I mean, it is funny though. I don't know. I think the problem is that the term power bottom is very funny to me.
Ascribing certain roles to people, that's all I'm asking for is just be a little more conscious of it.
So would you consider yourself a top or a bottom, or you?
So like before that, I just want to clarify because I watched a little more of it. I was on vacation at like Disney when I was doing this, so I didn't get to. I should have researched it a bit more. There's a little bit of context there. I don't think it like makes Ethan look good, but it helps him a little bit. Like for instance, when describing the joke, he was like, "Well, I'm not saying," and I don't know if like you could believe him or not. I think that I tend to. I don't think it's a bad. I think most of the time she's just being like a little sussy and having fun. Again, it's the pressing of the caller. That's probably that's really the bigger issue. But he was like, the reason I call someone like Jordan Peterson a power bottom is because I think that Jordan Peterson is somebody who really champions the idea of his masculinity, and by questioning that masculinity and saying that he's feminine, I think that that's an insult for him where it wouldn't be an insult for somebody else. Because if you called me like a bottom or a sub, I'd be like, yeah, put it up my ass, bro. Like I don't give a fuck. Like I really wouldn't care. If you're like, oh, Papa, you're a sub, I'm like, yeah, let me bend over, or like let me lay on my back and put my legs behind my head and spread my ass. You could fuck me. Like I don't care. Like it's funny to me. It's like silly. It's stupid. I don't care. It doesn't offend me, right? So I think that's what he's trying to say. So he's not. I don't think that Ethan was being poorly intentioned. You bet you would. I would. I'm a little bit beyond my anal area. Like back in the day, I was like a little experimenting with it, but I was with a girl who would do it a little bit, nothing big, like maybe a finger, but we broke up like right in my exploratory phase, so I never got into that. So I don't think I could, because
don't do that. The labels.
And
I mean, twerk, I'll think about it.
Love and with respect, Ethan, it's none of your business.
But you have a preference, one way or the other.
But that's another dangerous assumption too.
Can I guess?
Don't.
You tell me if it's right. If I guess right.
No.
Well, you know what? I'm not gonna get into it, Matt. But we all know which one you prefer.
Oh my god.
As long as you understand where I'm coming from on this.
To be honest,
You're coming from the bottom. You get it? Why is the G spot in the butt, bro? You know what? I think it's because God intended for guys to get fucked in the ass. That's all I could ever think. That's the only thing I can believe. That's the only thing. That's God wants gay people to be gay. So come.
Really, to be on the bottom is to give. It's to give. It's a gracious thing to give and to receive.
To give your body. Give your body, not your penis.
But like, if you are a regular receiver of anal sex, and I'm not saying you are, I don't know. But if you were, does the poop pass like any differently from before? Is it all normal functions? Like I get it doesn't leak out, but I wonder if it just comes out a little different.
Apologies to whatever his name was. Apparently I was homophobic to him, but whatever. What can you do? People say it was gross and disappointing. Saying you can guess if Matt is a power bottom by his voice is so gross. But I was right. That was the point. Wasn't I? He admitted.
Yeah, of course you were right. And
of course you were right, Ethan. You're always right. You're so smart.
Honestly, so over these fucking people. Shut the fuck up.
See, this is where it gets. This is a bad part.
It's a fucking entertaining show. Shut the fuck up.
Someone says, I don't know what's up.
So disappointing.
Someone said,
grow up. Jesus fucking Christ.
Dan. I don't know what's up with
This is probably the worst part about it.
Ethan today, but something's off. Bad vibes this episode.
Shut the fuck up. Unsubscribe. Go away. Jesus Christ.
Ethan could have been like, bro, you need to chill out. Holy fuck. This is really where it got bad. This is where it got real bad.
He said, it sometimes feels like Ethan thinks LGBTQ plus people are exotic or something. It's super uncomfy. Yeah, I think you all need to fucking... Do you think it's hard for a straight person to understand how it feels to always have people define you by how you prefer sex?
I feel like that's... Listen, I might be wrong. I don't know if that's the general experience of like most gay people. And maybe this is just because like the gay people around me don't give a shit about this. This could be totally me. But like within my framing, most of it's like the gay people that I know, and I know a lot of gay people. My wife's best friend is gay. My brother-in-law, well, I don't want to. Okay, well, yeah, he is too. They're great people, but like they call things gay. Like, oh, that's gay. Oh, when you pick it up the butt, they'll like make fun of people for being twinks too, and like some of them are more feminine. Like it's like whatever. It's just like it doesn't really. I feel like the only way you'd be like super offended by a gay joke is if you're like most people. I mean, I'm sure there are people who are offended. I'm not trying to be like an asshole because I'm sure people are offended. I think more people are offended by the response to the what was going on. But I feel like it's mostly like guys, masculine guy or straight guys or guys who are saying they're straight and they feel they're not comfortable in their sexuality. Maybe that's just a dated perspective from me. But I remember distinctly my uncle, rest in peace, I love my uncle. He was a great guy. My uncle, he would say, sometimes he would say a guy was handsome. And I'd be like, that's kind of gay. And I was like young. I wouldn't express it like that. And he's like, if you're comfortable with your sexuality, it doesn't matter. Like, who cares? It's just a handsome guy. You don't have to be attracted to somebody to acknowledge that they're attractive. And I was like, okay. That really resonated with me. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's where this kind of all stems from. Where like guys are like, I'm not gay. I'm not fucking gay, bro. I'm not fucking gay, dude. I'm not fucking gay, bro. I'll fuck anything. You know what I mean? And they cry during sex. I don't know. I think that's what I look at it more than anything else. I think it's like, who gives a shit? Like, whatever. It's just like some silly fun stuff. I could see why people would get offended. I understand that. I think it's in all good fun for the most part, though. At least when I say it. So yeah. But I guess there's also a conversation to have about like the type of audience that Ethan caters to. It's not even like the person called. It was fine, but it's like I don't know. Sometimes you just not respond to hate, and people will sometimes they just need to be upset for a little bit, and they just need to breathe and get over it. And I feel like that would have happened if you let the guy come on and then you just didn't read Reddit at all. Sometimes people just need to be upset, and then a lot of times they'll get out of it and be like, you know what, it was okay. But instead, you went poopy crazy.
Is that a valid criticism?
No, I'm so fucking frustrated with these people.
So wait,
Shut the
what was
fuck
that? Where
up.
did it even? Do you think some of y'all are way too fucking sensitive for the show? To be totally honest, like people in this thread who are saying they're grossed out and whatever. I think this with peace and love, you might be too sensitive to watch this show. If you're watching this show and you're perpetually offended by things I'm saying, you may want to just stop watching. Like genuinely, like does get annoying with some of y'all getting offended all the time. But come on, you're talking about power bottoms is like me asking Ela if she likes it in the front or back. That she ride your cock or like you pounding her. Respect, Matt. Not cool, dude.
I would just answer the question if you asked that about my wife. I rail the fuck out of my wife. I love fucking my wife. If you said that, it'd be like if you asked how your wife likes sex, you'd be like, fuck, bro, I'll tell you. I'll show you, motherfucker. I'll show you. Okay? I love my wife. We're open about that. We don't care. You know what I'm saying? I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna stream it? Yeah, no thanks.
Okay, so we have a lot to say. Please put your comments down below before we get started, because I already know y'all are going to have a lot to say about this drama. Leave it down below, girl. Do I think that Ethan Klein is homophobic? No.
Yes.
I do not think so.
Sorry.
What I do think is that Ethan Klein could have a lot more education about the situation.
I prefer the breeding press with my wife, if you know what that is.
So that's just a very small portion of Rich's opinion. The video he made was over 30 minutes long, so if you want to hear an in-depth opinion piece on this situation from the perspective of a gay man, I highly recommend you go check out that video. Or you could listen to a straight guy downplay the severity of his straight friend's homophobic remarks by continuing to watch DefNoodles.
I think it's important to contextualize this whole situation.
Bro, DefNoodles loves the word context, but I don't think that he knows what it means. So I think that what we should do is we should define a context. The circumstances that form the setting for an event, statement, or idea, and in terms of which it can be fully understood and assessed. So that's what it means. Now, the reason that I say he doesn't know what he's talking about is because I remember I was trying to question his moral foundation, where he was going after Killick for making inappropriate jokes about that Gabriella B girl indirectly through her brother. But then he was consistently saying that, and he said that was bad, but then he kept calling me like an incel or whatever, and I wasn't offended, but I was like, well, how is that any different? And you see that you're just joking, but then why can't I just say Killick's just joking? He's like, no, the context is different. It's like, what do you mean? What does that mean to you? This is a comedy show. It's not. It's a drama show, but you're making like a joke. And you're making a joke that like has a target of a person. Now, if your argument is that you think I can handle it because I'm a big, strong man, that's fine. But like, you see how there's like a cognitive dissonance here in the way that he engages. I don't think he knows what the word context is. He didn't know what the word shifting the goalposts like the term meant. Like, it's fine, but like, why are you saying these things with confidence if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about? So,
because people seem to be upset about some off-color jokes that were made about being a bottom on a comedy podcast during a phone call between the host.
Everything's a comedy thing. You know what I mean?
And a viewer, to the point where they've been literally trying to cancel.
So, like, I wonder, would you be okay with like Steven Crowder's thing where he put it like he did this thing on like when George Floyd died where he reenacted it as a joke? Was that okay to you because it's a joke on a comedy podcast? You know what I'm saying? Like, where does it like we use comedy to. I use comedy to reinforce some ideas, have some fun, and be more relatable, I guess, stuff like that. That's what people tend to do. It doesn't mean that there's nothing behind that. And you can tell whether the intention is to be fun or sometimes the intention is maybe being more antagonistic. I think Ethan was trying to be fun. I think his response was more antagonistic. That's where we would talk about the word context. It would require you to sit down and actually watch things in any level of depth. The
host and the crew and the podcast itself for the last 3.5 days. Meanwhile, people like Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, Ben's company, The Daily Wire, Republican politicians are working in a concerted effort.
I believe this is what we call whataboutism, right? It's like, what about this? You know what I mean? What about this? That's like a whataboutism argument. It's like, I went to the doctor and because I had a cough. Right, and they were like, well, I know you have a cough, but like, what about the kids starving in Africa? I can't help you. Go fuck yourself. Go die. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a what about argument. Like, okay, well, this is kind of irrelevant. It's weird.
To label the LGBT community as pedophiles, as groomers, as predators, and to even go as far as to try to completely erase them from American society. The real enemy here.
So, I think he's referring to the Don't Say Gay bill, which I've actually done a little bit of education on. And the bill overall, I think, is really supposed to be about teachers not like expressly teaching in depth about like like sex and gender to kids that under like third grade. I think it's kindergarten to third grade. If I correct me if I'm wrong. And so for the most part, it's not that big of a deal because you can like if a kid says that like asks if you have a husband or a wife, if you're a girl and has a wife, like you're still allowed to say that kind of shit. That's my understanding. It's not that big of a deal. The bigger issue is that I think that any parent can sue the school personally if they feel something has been done wrong, which opens the school up to dumping millions of dollars in resources to defend themselves constantly. That's the bigger issue with the bill. You don't feel like they ever did that? I don't think that they ever did that either. I think it's a virtue signal bill outside of that last part that I said, which I think is fucking like really bad because it's going to drain the resources for public education. I think it was more of a virtue signal bill because there were sometimes some teachers on the libs of TikTok would show that were like fucking stupid as hell. Right? So no, when I said like sex and gender, I meant like biological sex and gender, not like actual sexual education. That's a different story. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, you're saying you learned in 5th grade. Yeah, so I think that's the bigger issue. I think it was a virtue signal bill of like conservatives have like crying and shitting and farting because they see the libs of TikTok and think that that's like the everyday experience for children. But the problem more than anything else, like I said, is the fact that they can sue indiscriminately. So
there are people like Gavin McInnes who start hate groups, who are ultra nationalistic.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think there's any reason to speak to a child between pre-K and 3rd grade about sexual preference or anything. I agree. But here's the thing: like if you're like in 2nd grade and you have a girl or a boy teacher. Let's say you have like a boy teacher, and you're like, oh, are you married? Who's your wife? And they're like, oh no, I have a husband. I'm gay. I don't think that that's a problem at all. Like cope. You know what I'm saying? Like gay people exist. But they shouldn't be sitting down and having like deep conversations like, but are you gay? But if they're like, yeah, I'm gay, and they're like, oh, that's weird. Like, yeah, sometimes men can love men and women can love women. That's where you stop it. You don't have to go into like super depth. But now I think that if you do that, the bill opens a parent up to suing the school. Even if it gets dismissed, it's still wasting resources that the school could otherwise use on this experience of children. So I think that's the bigger issue in general. So
who believe in racial purity and are actively working against progressive causes, who actually hate the LGBT community. And what we're doing by literally dragging Ethan Klein through the coals is giving...
Ethan's our champion and our savior. Oh, God, I'm gonna fucking come. Oh, shit, yeah. God, you're so fucking hot. Ethan, please, can you bring me on your show again? I'm defending you, please. Oh, shit, Ethan, fuck. Oh, Ethan. That might have been a little inappropriate, but I think that it's an accurate reflection of the how DefNoodles masturbates at night. Truthfully.
People like Gavin the fodder so that he can influence people against progressive causes and the very things that we work for every single day. I want to congratulate both Rich Lux and Keemstar for falling into the alt-right pipeline and supplying motherfuckers like Gavin McInnes and Tim Stool with the narratives that they want so they can continue to work against progressive causes.
So what's interesting? None of them are like, so I think Tim Pool talked about it in the context that like Ethan panders too much to like left-wing audiences and now he kind of deserves to lose his sponsors. That's pretty much it. They're not using it as like a calling card to say like anything else, I don't think. But
which is at the end of the day exactly what Rich Lux and Keemstar wanted, right? But should we really be that surprised?
This guy's insane. His logic makes
Rich Lux wants that. Pogger. You might be able to pull that off with Keemstar because Keemstar doesn't even understand pronouns in the bio. I literally talked to him and he's like, I think pronouns in the bio are stupid. And I'm like, listen, and his reason is because he thinks it's all performative, which I get it, because I think that it can be very performative too. But I was like, at the end of the day, what it signals to a trans person is that like you accept them as a person because they grow up their entire life a lot of times with like possibly internal like transphobia, and where like their day-to-day interactions don't let them be themselves. And so when they see somebody with the pronouns in their bio, they go, oh, that person doesn't hate me for existing. And he's like, I just don't like, so you might have a good argument against Keemstar because he's just I think he means well, but he's fucking insane. But like Rich Lux, like what the fuck? I don't even understand, dude. Holy shit.
No sense, or almost no sense. So because Rich Lux criticized Ethan Klein for homophobic remarks, which he himself apologized for and acknowledged was wrong, that gives ammo to the alt-right to go against Ethan because these alt-right figures don't like Ethan because he's left-wing.
Well, they don't like Ethan because I think it's because he's a little annoying. But like Gavin McInnes is a fucking moron, so.
Wouldn't they go after Ethan regardless of this mistake or not? And if this mistake is such huge ammunition for the alt-right to use against Ethan Klein, shouldn't the fault lay on Ethan Klein for making those insensitive jokes in the first place? No.
True. Yeah, giving them the fodder to speak out against him, and to topple our mighty leftist progressive Ethan Klein. Like he's not even like he barely talks about like any issue, like any progressive issue. I guess he was using leftovers to try to do that, so I should probably give him a little credit for that. But still,
not a prominent member of the LGBTQ plus community calling it out. It just seems so backwards to call Rich Lux anti-gay for calling out Ethan's homophobic remarks because the alt-right can use that criticism against Ethan Klein, who,
even if you think that Rich Lux is completely unjustified, like you should at least understand the experience of somebody like within a marginalized community being more sensitive to criticism or to some kind of a joke. You know what I mean? Like if somebody made a fat joke and I got like offended, even if the joke was okay, it's okay. I'm fat. I identify with that. You know what I mean? Like we're obviously going to take things more sensitive, and all jokes will generate, like all jokes have a target. The best comedians, I think, are like make jokes about, like Mike Birbiglia. He's so funny. He makes jokes about himself, and I think it's so hard to not make edgy jokes. I think the best comedians make clean jokes because you have to be so clever. And I like edgy humor, but you have to be so clever to make like cleaner jokes. It's easy to like say like, "Hey, something racist." You know what I mean? But like at the end of the day, every joke's gonna have a target, and the people that are the target are usually gonna get a bit offended. Now, I personally wouldn't have thicker skin, but it's okay if somebody does. Like that doesn't make them a bad person because, oh my god, they got offended because they identify with like a thing. Like holy fuck, you know what I mean? You can disagree. Without doing this, without like thinking that it's problematic necessarily. But again, you understand that it's the response that's problematic.
Who is
say something racist right now? Cracker
is pro-gay rights. Like this is
Cracker. Sorry, even I shouldn't say with the hard R, even though I am white.
The most insane amount of mental gymnastics just to take some more blame off of Ethan. Dennis, Ethan is an adult. He already apologized for his mistake. You don't need to help downplay it by pointing at critics of Ethan's bad behavior like Rich.
Don't fucking report me on Twitch, bro. I'm gonna be so upset.
Lux and Keemstar as being the problem, going as far as to calling them alt-right. I can maybe understand losing the bigger picture a little bit due to your affinity for Ethan, but when it results in you calling Rich Lux alt-right, it might be time to reevaluate how much your bias towards Ethan Klein affects your ability to rationally think. Which, by the way, is a criticism I also have for Keemstar, as he recently said that this situation with Ethan Klein making gay jokes should result in his channel getting terminated, which, in my opinion, is just way too far. Like,
bro, it's crazy because Keemstar tried to like plead with me. He was so upset that Ethan made these jokes targeting James Charles, but then I was like, okay, but you're super in defense. We talked later. You're super in defense of video game trolling. Like you defended iShowSpeed, and I said that what he did was wrong, but he shouldn't be canceled. But Keemstar's like, no, we need to preserve trash talk. I'm like, how is it different that you're justifying being toxic towards people on the internet in the context of playing a game and being like super toxic and saying horrible things, and even going as far as using like the F slur. We use that as an example. But this isn't okay. And he's like, well, the James Charles is a person, and it's like, bro, you cannot have these. These are not morally consistent opinions for you to have. Okay, my argument here, because you could probably be like, well, Papa Gut, you say that the speed shouldn't be, yelling and being toxic and whatnot. The first biggest thing is that it's like, I think if two people are consensually arguing on the internet or whatever, or trash talking on video games, like whatever, but more the issue is that I think that the joke in and of itself is very light, and I don't really care. It's not like a huge, like super problematic, like it's slightly edgy, but it doesn't cross a line. Whereas going into a video game calling like somebody a bitch and go back in the kitchen, I think is like a super big line crosser, especially with the energy in which they proposed it to. I think if Ethan made like a silly joke about like Hila going back to the kitchen and making him food, I think that would also be appropriate. It depends on the intensity, and it depends on the intensity, what the feeling is behind it, and how easy is it to understand that feeling. Because with iShowSpeed, like he's doing it to troll, but people get the real idea that they're getting targeted, that like, oh my god, like this guy's like super aggressive. Whereas I don't think that Ethan's was like that big of a deal. It was like more lighthearted. I think you could understand it wasn't that big of a deal. But Keemstar just like it. There's so many different ways in which Keemstar's moral system doesn't work. It doesn't add up. It's fucking crazy. And it was a nice conversation, but it's fucking insane.
Dude, you don't, like, your channel should be terminated. You can't do this stuff.
Why?
You can't do this stuff. I don't know how this is allowed on YouTube.com. Like, you can't do this.
I personally don't think it's called for termination, but yeah, it's super, super, super
I think
bad.
all homophobes.
It's not super bad. It's not that big. It's crazy, bro. You got code, brother. He hates, dude. I feel this is like a real thing. I didn't say this to Keemstar. I'm sure I'll get the opportunity to. But I would say that I think that the worst thing someone can do is allow somebody else to completely destroy their moral compass. Like, you hate Ethan so much that you're setting aside like a moral and logical consistency that people are like, oh, this guy's shitty. Like, you're jumping on it because you don't like Ethan. There's no other explanation, because what he did wasn't that bad at all. Okay, it's not bad at all.
Phobia should be terminated.
If you want to see Keemstar's full thoughts on this, it's up on Augie RFC's channel.
I might watch that content.
Also, at the end of this, you can choose between the Keemstar perspective or the Rich Lux perspective. A bit of a choose-your-own-adventure situation. But at the end of the day, Ethan Klein is just a man on the internet. The extreme idolization of Ethan as well.
Oh, you want to know what was another problematic thing that I think a lot of people forget? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure he kept doing this thing where it's like, you don't know my sexuality. Ethan kept doing, you don't know my sexuality. You don't know who I am. You don't know if I'm gay. Him and Dan kept doing that. And that's like shitty, where you act like a dickhead and then you're like, but you don't know me. But maybe I'm gay. And it's like, okay, but even if you're like let's say that you're like heteroflexible is usually what you'd call it, where you're like mostly straight, but like you're a little bit flexible, I believe. Let's say that you're like, you're a little bit gay. You have no identification with like the gay community. Like, just because I'm attracted to like femboys, and I've talked to trans men before, right? That is obviously kind of gay, right? But I can't identify with the community. There's nothing. I've never been treated like shit for any of that. I've never been like talked down to for it. I'm still mostly straight. I fuck like almost always with women. You know what I'm saying? So, I've only fucked women. So like, you can't identify with that. You have no identification with it. Right? It's the same thing if you were like bisexual, but you've never been with like a girl. It's something similar to that, where if you just haven't necessarily faced like a particular issue. So it's just like kind of shitty, and now you're just trying to like use you're literally trying to use like the LGBT community as a shield from being criticized by the LGBTQ community. It's like Trisha Paytas, who would say something transphobic and be like, but I'm trans, non-binary, can't touch me. You know what I mean? Can't touch me, safe. You know what I mean? It's like, when you get to say, safe, I'm safe, It's one of those things. It's like really shitty.
As the extreme antagonization of Ethan is just dumb. Let's look at these situations as they come and judge them on an individual.
Let's look at them as they come. I like that at Bowblax.
Basis, rather than going into it with an extreme bias on one side or the other. Because if you don't keep your biases in check, you might end up calling Rich Lux a member of the alt-right. But that's about it for this video. If you have any opinions on this situation.
Well, alt-right. That was a great video. Everybody clap. Let's normalize you guys clapping. Instead of using this time to ask you to like and subscribe and comment through the algorithm, I'm asking you just to clap for me. This is like a spirit bomb from Dragon Ball Z. You clap for me, and it'll be like you're holding your hands up and giving me your raw energy for me to become more powerful, or for me to just become. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and another special shout out to all my Patreon and Twitch subs. If you'd like to support this channel further than you already have by just watching the video alone, go down to the links below where you can sub on my Patreon, which will allow you to get your name on this beautiful black wall. Or you can go to the Twitch page and you can actually use a free Amazon Prime sub, if you have Amazon Prime, to subscribe. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.